Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here for the first time, welcome. My name is Angela and I find my paradise through reading. I am going to finally do a wrap up. I did not do a wrap up for April. I spent most of April focused on War and Peace. However, during the last maybe week and a half of April, I did listen to some audiobooks because I was spending a lot of time outside preparing my gardens. And so I was like sowing and planting and cleaning out my raised beds. And so I was listening to audiobooks while I was like puttering around and just doing a whole bunch of stuff. So I did actually get through a number of audiobooks. So we're going to talk about those. So the three books that I listened to in April were these. First was Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. Let me tell you something. This was was not my first experience with Neil Gaiman's work. The first book that I read of his was Coraline, and I thought it was okay. But I had heard so many good things about The Graveyard Book, and especially the audiobook because Neil Gaiman narrates his own books. So I heard a lot of great things about it. I was like, all right, let's listen to this one. It was available on Libby. So I borrowed it and I loved it. Like, this book just slung me into Neil Gaiman fandom. I don't know what it is about his writing that makes me want to be a writer. Like, his creativity, his writing, his style. I don't know what it is about him, but like, it makes me want to be a writer, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe one day I will. That always was a dream of mine, but I'm kind of enjoying this phase of my life where I'm just enjoying reading other people's works. But no lie, The Graveyard Book, I still think about this book and I adored it. I adored the characters, just everything about it. So here's the hard copy. It's got some illustrations in the book. Hold on, let me see if I can find one for you. So, what can I say? Basically, this boy, ooh, that looks kind of creepy. You can see that. So this boy, toddler, there's unfortunate circumstances, ends up in a nearby graveyard, and the ghosts there find him and decide to raise him themselves. So he has to stay in the graveyard, and he's given like this thing, kind of the freedom of the graveyard, where he has certain abilities that are bestowed upon him, because he's not a ghost, he is a living being. But anyway, it's this book is so fantastic. It's so fantastic and so fun. But let me read a little excerpt so you have a little taste of the writing style. Okay, so the fog was thinner as you approached the top of the hill. The half moon shone, not as bright as day, not by any means, but enough to see the graveyard. Enough for that. Look. You could see the abandoned funeral chapel, iron doors padlocked, ivy on the sides of the spire, a small tree growing out of the guttering at roof level. You could see stones and tombs and vaults and memorial plaques. You could see the occasional dash or scuttle of a rabbit or a vole or a weasel as it slipped out of the undergrowth and across the path. You would have seen these things in the moonlight if you had been there that night. You might not have seen a pale, plump woman who walked the path near the front gates, and if you had seen her, with a second, more careful glance, you would have realized that she was only moonlight, mist, and shadow. The plump, pale woman was there, though. She walked the path that led through a clutch of half-fallen tombstones towards the front gates. So, Graveyard Book, highly recommend, by Neil Gaiman. Audiobook, absolutely, he is fantastic. So, after having listened to that, I wanted to experience a little bit more of his writing, so I listened to Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman, and this is a collection of short stories. I'm not that big into short stories, but I actually really did enjoy this collection. Again, he narrated the whole thing. I love in the beginning how he, in the introduction, he tells you a little bit about each short story, like maybe why he wrote it, the idea surrounding it, what he was trying to express or get across. And so I thought this was so fascinating, and I had such a great time with this. Especially, I highly recommend, if you get the hard copy or even in the audio version, listening to the introduction and like cross-referencing the little excerpt or the snippet that he provides about why he wrote these. And it's really neat. So one of my favorite ones, some of these were creepy, some were just fun. I did like one, there's a collection of stories for a year, like one story for each month. So those stories were cool. My favorite of those was the January story. It's kind of like about the changing of the handing off of the old year and the new year. I don't know, it's just wild and it's so cool. Another short story that I really liked was Click Clack the Rattle Bag. This story is only 5 pages long, creepy as mess. Really, really creepy, and it was cool. So let me just read a little bit of that so you can get a taste of this writing style. Before you take me up to bed, will you tell me a story? Do you actually need me to take you up to bed? I asked the boy. He thought for a moment. Then, with intense seriousness, yes, actually, I think I do. It's because I finished my homework, and so it's my bedtime, and I am a bit scared. Not very scared, just a bit. But it is a very big house, and lots of times the lights don't work, and it's sort of dark. I reached over and tousled his hair. I can understand that, I said. It is a very big old house. He nodded. We were in the kitchen, where it was light and warm. I put down my magazine on the kitchen table. What kind of story would you like me to tell you? Well, he said thoughtfully, I don't think it should be too scary, because then when I go up to bed, I will just be thinking about monsters the whole time. But if it isn't just a little bit scary, then I won't be interested. And if you make up scary stories, and you make up scary stories, don't you? I know she says that's what you do. She exaggerates. I write stories, yes. Nothing that's really been published yet, though, and I write lots of different kinds of stories. But you do write scary stories? Yes. So that was a part of Click Clack the Rattle Bag. Creepy, highly recommend. So that's Neil Gaiman's collection of short fictions and disturbances. This is what it's called. Trigger warning. Then I went and listened to another audiobook. Let me tell you, I've had a lot of time to listen to audiobooks during the month of April, and I listened to In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. And just like with Neil Gaiman, this really launched me into TJ Klune fandom, and I wanted so much more. This book, phenomenal. It was just so absolutely phenomenal. I mean, between this and the Graveyard Book, they were very close contenders for my favorite book of the month. But I gave it to In the Lives of Puppets. The narrator, his name was Daniel, I want to say Daniel Henning or something. Fantastic. Absolutely go with this audiobook because it is so fun and so funny. So In the Lives of Puppets is basically like a sci-fi Pinocchio retelling, which is pretty wild, and I didn't think I was really going to be into it, but this is hilarious. So this follows Victor, I think, Victor Lawson. He's a human who was raised by his dad, humanoid robot, in the woods by themselves. Giovanni was an inventor and a creator, and so he's raising this human boy, Victor, and Victor has two robot friends. One is Nurse Ratched, and she's a nurse. Let me tell you what Ratched stands for. It stands for, let me see. Okay. She is Registered Automaton to Care, Heal, Educate, and Drill. So, Nurse Ratched for short. So she is kind of like maybe a human-sized robot, but kind of square-shaped, and has all kinds of, what do you call it, compartments and things, appendages and things that stick out. She can drill and she can heal, and she pretty much takes care of Victor in some ways, but she is very bizarre, very sadistic, has a dark sense of humor, and it's the funniest thing ever. His other robot friend is Rambo, who is like a short little robot vacuum, and he's got like arms with little pinchers, and he is highly sensitive, has severe anxiety, and a heart of gold. So these three are just a trio that just had me cracking up nonstop, especially Nurse Ratched, who is always messing with Rambo, and he's just always scared. And it's, the back and forth was just amazing. And I love these characters. Again, like, I just want them in my life. And I just want so much more of them. And this story was so perfect. It was so perfect. But let me read you a quick excerpt so that you can see what the writing style is like. Again, audiobook. Oh my goodness. The guy did the best job with these voices, especially the robots. Oh my goodness. Anyways, so here we go. He says, "I'm fine the way I am," Rambo muttered. "You are not," Ratched said. "If you like, I can run a diagnostic scan to see if I can pinpoint your malfunction. Do you have insurance?" "No," Rambo said morosely. "I don't have anything." "You're fine the way you are," Vic told him, shooting a glare at Nurse Ratched, which she ignored completely. "There's nothing wrong with you. You're just unique, like the rest of us." "That is called a white lie," Nurse Ratched said, her screen filled with digital balloons. "White lies are often spoken to make one feel better. I will assist Victor in this process. Here is my white lie. You are a wonderful machine, beloved by many." "Leave him alone," Vic said as he knelt at his father's feet. "Do you feel better?" Nurse Ratched asked. "Yes," Rambo said promptly. "Tell me more white lies." "You are important. You have a purpose. The pipe you displayed earlier is bigger than any I have seen before." "Yay," Rambo said, arms raised. "I'm endowed." Dad arched an eyebrow. "Do I want to know?" So that is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is it's just about everything. It's about life. It's about friendship. It's about family. And it's just, love it. Love it, love it, love it so much. Okay, so now we're getting into May. And if you are in any way familiar with my channel, if you've been following me for a little bit of time, you will know that I finished War and Peace in May. Okay, this hefty boy is the classic that I worked on, and I think I started reading this like April 1st. I finished this maybe a week into May, but it was a chunker. I am so glad I read this book. I do recommend going for it if anyone's intimidated by this, as I was for the longest time. It's just, I don't even know what else. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this book. Basically, all I can say is this is pretty much like the main characters are Russians, and this is during the Napoleonic Wars, and so you're following a lot of different characters, like Prince Nikolai, Count Pierre, Prince Andre, Natalia, just like all of these different characters and what's going on with them and their families and friends, and just overall like during the war and in between, in times of peace and afterwards. And it's just oh my goodness, I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, and I was impressed. I was really into the story. I really cared about the characters, and it was a journey I was glad that I undertook, because this was not just a feather in my cap, and I was very proud of myself for having read this, but surprisingly it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, and I enjoyed it. So it was War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Okay, then I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I heard a lot about this book, so I was like really curious. People described it as a cozy read, and I agree. This was a very cozy read, and even though, you know, you have like the witch and the broomstick and whatever, it did not really give off Halloween vibes. So I wouldn't like hold off until Halloween to read it. Yeah, no, read it now. It's fine. It's cute. It's very cute. It's a found family kind of story, and this is following, what's her name? Mika Moon, who is a witch, and these are modern times, okay? So cell phones, cars, and whatever. She calls her car the broomstick. So that's her broomstick. But yeah, she has a YouTube channel, and she posts YouTube videos showing some magic and stuff. But she is doing it kind of to share just her love of like these potions and brews and teas and different things and spells. But she does it expecting that people will think that she's just not a real witch, right? So she's like, you know, nobody's going to believe that this is like real magic. They're thinking I'm doing tricks or whatever. But that's just like her way of expressing herself and sharing what she loves. But someone does reach out to her knowing that she's a real witch. And they're like, we need you ASAP. Can you please come to our home? And there are 3 little girl witches here, and we want you to be their live-in teacher, because we don't know how to teach, you know, witchy stuff to these girls. We don't know what we're doing. And so she's kind of like skeptical at first, and she's like, what the heck is going on? But she does go, and she wants to check it out and see what's going on, and you go from there. So absolutely lovely, 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 cozy, cute story. characters. Oh, it's cute. Yes, I recommend it. I recommend it if you're looking for like a cozy read and you like the found family trope, some love, but not, you know, what do you call it? Like not too much love, you know, it's not the focus. This isn't like really a love story. It's more about the family and about like magic and potions and disasters and things like that. Love it. Recommend. I mean, I'm telling you, I feel like April and May really brought it with books. I mean, the books did what they came to do during April and May. I've been having the best time with these books. I'm telling you, it's been incredible. So that being said, let's go to the next one. I read Holes by Louis Sachar. Burp. I was gonna say, like, maybe I should have like read a little excerpt from here so that you can see what the writing style is like, right? The very secret society of witches met on the third Thursday of every month, but that was just about the only thing that never changed. They never met in the same place twice. The last meeting, for instance, had been in Belinda Nicola's front room and had involved freshly baked scones, and the one before that had been in the glorious sunshine of Agatha Jones's garden. This meeting, on a cold, wet October afternoon, happened to be taking place on a tiny abandoned pier in the Outer Hebrides. A pier in the Outer Hebrides in October. So that was an excerpt from that. All right, so back to Holes. Boom. I've watched this movie. There was a live adaptation made, and I believe, what's his name? Shia LaBeouf played Stanley Yelnats, the main character in this book. Loved that movie, saw it multiple times, and so I was curious about the book, and I was not disappointed. The book was so fun. It was so fun. Definitely did great. The movie did really great by the book, I would have to say. So in Holes, there is this boy, Stanley Yelnats, who gets wrongly accused of committing a crime. He's like a young teenager, I think. He gets sent to this juvenile detention center called Camp Green Lake, which is basically a dried up lake, no trees, no nothing, dirt, dust, nothing. And the boys have to every day dig holes out on this dried up lake. And the hole has to be like 5 feet, like around 5 feet deep, every day. That's all they're doing. And it's just miserable, very, very miserable. And so what makes this story interesting is there are like just all of these backstories and histories and curses. And so it just takes all of these stories and finally like brings them together in the most satisfying way. Oh my gosh. But let me read an excerpt. This was so fun. I do recommend this. Oh my goodness. This was a great book. All right. So I'll just start on the first page. There is no lake at Camp Green Lake. There once was a very large lake here, the largest lake in Texas. That was over 100 years ago. Now it is just a dry, flat wasteland. There used to be a town of Green Lake as well. The town shriveled and dried up along with the lake and the people who lived there. During the summer, the daytime temperature hovers around 95 degrees in the shade, if you can find any shade. There's not much shade in a big dry lake. The only trees are 2 old oaks on the eastern edge of the lake. A hammock is stretched between the 2 trees and a log cabin stands behind that. The campers are forbidden to lie in the hammock. It belongs to the warden. The warden owns the shade. Out on the lake, Rattlesnakes and scorpions find shade under rocks and in the holes dug by the campers. Here's a good rule to remember about rattlesnakes and scorpions. If you don't bother them, they won't bother you. Usually. Being bitten by a scorpion or even a rattlesnake is not the worst thing that can happen to you. You won't die. Usually. Sometimes a camper will try to be bitten by a scorpion or even a small rattlesnake. Then he will get to spend a day or two recovering in his tent instead of having to dig a hole out on the lake. But you don't want to be bitten by a yellow spotted lizard. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. You will die a slow and painful death. Always. If you get bitten by a yellow spotted lizard, you might as well go into the shade of the oak trees and lie in the hammock. There is nothing anyone can do to you anymore. Okay, so that's holes. Then we had Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This, I kind of didn't get completely. I don't know, like this has so much hype and everyone's like, Howl's Moving Castle, Howl's Moving Castle. No, I didn't fully, it was okay. But no, like I don't know. I wanted to like this so much and I kind of did like some parts, but again, it just wasn't really my thing. So this is basically, there's a castle that moves around and there's a wizard Howl that lives in this castle. And Sophie is this young woman who was in a hat shop. A witch came in, put a spell on her, turned her into like an 80-year-old lady, 90-year-old lady. And so Sophie's like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And then she just leaves the hat shop and goes wandering off and decides she's gonna check out this castle that's moving around. She needs a place to stay now, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. But let us do it. Okay. But the castle stayed roving about the hills, and it was learned that it did not belong to the witch, but to Wizard Howl. Wizard Howl was bad enough. Though he did not seem to want to leave the hills, he was known to amuse himself by collecting young girls and sucking the souls from them. Or some people said he ate their hearts. He was an utterly cold-blooded and heartless wizard, and no young girl was safe from him if he caught her on her own. Sophie, Letty, and Martha, along with all the other girls in Market Chipping, were warned never to go out alone, which was a great annoyance to them. They wondered what use Wizard Howl found for all the souls he collected. Howl's Moving Castle. Then I read Find Him Where You Left Him Dead by Kristen Simmons. This is like Jumanji in a very gross, The Ring kind of way, like Japanese horror and Jumanji kind of put together. It's bleh. So basically this is, I think, I don't know how many years later, 5 years later, but there were some teenagers, they played some kind of a game in a cave, and one of the teenagers did not make it out of the cave. They never saw him again. They never wanted to talk about what happened that night. It was just, they were all traumatized. So it kind of picks up. The beginning is like after all of that. This is like them all living their separate lives, acting like stuff never happened. And so, yeah. And then they have to basically go back and play this game because that boy who never made it out appeared to each of them in a really gross, disturbing kind of way. And so they have to go back and finish this game, and it's just terrible. It is horrific, gruesome, gory, Yeah, not fun at all. But here's an excerpt. And this is Maddie. She is a swimmer and she is at the swimming pool, like indoor swim pool, and she's practicing her laps and stuff like that. So, and she's by herself. It's kind of like evening, nighttime. Okay, so Maddie. Madeline's stomach filled with lead. She turned back slowly, squinting through the steam to see the boy step to the edge of the pool. His gait was strange. His legs and arms bent like he had too many joints. Cold filled her. Even in the dim light, she registered his concave chest and rib lines. He was too skinny to be a swimmer. Skin and bone. Maddie, the boy said louder. Maddie. Her fingers gripped the gritty cement of the deck. Stop. She needed to get out, to run. Instead, she sank deeper into the water as if it might protect her. Why'd you do it? He asked. Why'd you leave me in the dark? Her lips parted on a sharp inhale. Ian? Impossible. Ian was dead. But when she looked at the boy on the edge of the pool, she saw him, his long limbs, his mess of dark hair. His memory took shape before her, wild-eyed, forever 13. Ian, he repeated, and then he gave a shrill laugh that cut off as quickly as it had started. By dawn, there will be no more Ian. No, she shook her head. Ian was dead. This was a prank, a hallucination. Maybe she was dreaming. Another nightmare. Dizziness had her hands slipping off the side of the pool. She fixed her grip. This wasn't real. Finish the game, the boy who couldn't be Ian said. And that's one of the less disturbing instances of when he shows up, and I can't say I enjoyed this that much. Nope, this wasn't for me. But if you like, if a gory kind of Jumanji sounds like your jam, do it. Do it, but not for me. Okay, then I read Morrigan. Look at this gorgeous book. Mary E. Pearson. Okay. So I got this because I liked the cover. And I did not know that it was just as pretty inside. Look at these pages. It has illustrations. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be such a fast and easy story to read. And it was. Look at this. I love that style of illustration. It just looks so cool, I think. But I did not know, another one. Lovely. I did not know that this was part of a series. So this is a prequel, a backstory of Morrigan, who's one of the main characters here. There's the Remnant universe. And this is like the beginnings of the Remnant universe. I guess it all started with Morrigan. And this is a story of young woman Morrigan, and I think his name is Jafir. So she is part of like a small clan, a group of people that kind of stay in hiding, and they kind of move around from place to place, kind of nomadic, a very small nomadic tribe that stay hidden and try to be inconspicuous, and they gather and hunt, for whatever they need, and they try to store things and preserve things and just try to survive. And then there are another group of people called scavengers who will try to find these poor people and take whatever they've hunted and gathered. They'll take their tools, they'll take clothing, blankets, whatever they find useful. So that's how the survivors, the scavengers survive, by taking from remnants. And then they try to do some hunting and gathering themselves, but for the most part, they're out looking for these people. Okay, so let me read a quick excerpt. We'd had this conversation many times. The scavengers were wild and reckless, thieves and savages preying on the work of others. and sometimes they were killers too, depending on their whim. We hid in the hills and ruins, quiet in our footsteps, soft in voice, the walls of an empty world giving us cover, and where the walls were only dust, the tall grasses hid us. But sometimes even that was not enough. So the scavengers are known for being like very violent, very dangerous, and they do sometimes like kill some of the remnant people, and they are very passive. They are very like, oh, we're not going to fight back. We're not going to defend ourselves. We're not going to kill anybody or hurt anybody. Excuse me. They just take whatever you want, you know, and it's so sad in a way. But so Morrigan is a member of the remnant tribe. Jafir is a scavenger, and they become friends, and has to be very, very secret, obviously. And it's a cute story. And I'm somewhat curious now about the Remnant series and what that's about. So I might look into that. I'm not sure, because I do have a whole bunch of series that I've started, and I don't want to add on to like my sets of series, because I'm just like never going to get all of these series completely done. But I think it's only a trilogy. Remnant, no, there's 5, I think. So I don't know. We'll see. But that was good. I enjoyed it. It was quick. It was a quick, easy read. And then we had Neil Gaiman again. Bruh, he's so good. So we have Fragile Things. This is another collection of his short stories. This time, though, I did feel very, very distracted when I was listening to this. I love him narrating his own works, and he does such a great job. So I opted to listen to this. And I during the times that I was listening to it, I was distracted. So there's a lot of these that I didn't get. So I didn't like it as much as Trigger Warning, but I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I was just really distracted, not really paying attention to these. So I am going to listen to these again, and when I'm not so distracted. And again, he does give you a little bit of information about each of the stories that he has written in here. I do remember one being like a Sherlock Holmesy kind of story that I thought was really, really interesting. And you could just tell right away that it was just very, very Sherlock Holmes. So I don't remember. Yeah, I don't know. I feel terrible because I feel like I can't really say a whole lot about it. The facts in the case of the departure of Miss Finch. I don't know. I'm definitely going to have to come back to this again. But I don't feel like anything really stood out strongly enough that I can like really like. I remember the Sherlock Holmesy kind of one, and I can't even say it was fantastic. I just remembered it. Oh, and this guy's Shadow. So an American Gods novella. I do remember that story. I thought that was pretty cool. And I guess this guy Shadow is a character in his novel called American Gods, which I haven't read yet. And so now I want to read American Gods because this was really, really interesting. I do remember this one. So let me see. If you ask me, said the little man to Shadow, you're something of a monster. Am I right? They were the only two people, apart from the barmaid, in the bar of a hotel in a town on the north coast of Scotland. Shadow had been sitting there on his own, drinking a lager, when the man came over and sat at his table. It was late summer, and it seemed to Shadow that everything was cold and small and damp. He had a small book of pleasant local walks in front of him. and he was studying the walk he planned to do tomorrow along the coast toward Cape Wrath. He closed the book. "I'm American," said Shadow, if that's what you mean. So I do remember this story. It was very interesting. I can say that much, but I will go through the whole book again. Anyways, that is it. Like, those are all the books that I read or listened to during the months of April and May. And I am so pleased. Like I said, I had a fantastic time with these books these last 2 months. New authors to me that like TJ Klune and Neil Gaiman that have me so excited. My first Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace, that just blew me out of the water. And I don't know, Holes, I was so glad that I read that book after having seen the movie multiple times and was so impressed with how well the movie played out with the book. It was just, oh my goodness, they did such a good job. I mean, the only ones that I feel like, okay, Find Him Where You Left Him Dead was kind of creepy. I didn't really enjoy it that much. Howl's Moving Castle, I kind of really didn't get it and understand what the hype was about. But other than that, I think, like, seriously, loving it. And so many more good books to come. I am in the midst of a couple wonderful books that I'm enjoying. I'm not going to talk about them right now because I'll go off on a tangent and I've already been talking for long enough. But anyways, let me know what you read during the month of May. If you have any recommendations, let me know all the good stuff. Let's talk books. All right, so comment, obviously like and subscribe if you want to see more material from me, and happy reading. Bye.